I'd like to call the Fairfield County Council special meeting to order Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, 6 p.m. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially the staff, and appreciate all of you all being here tonight and council members. So I want to call to order. Can we get approval of the agenda?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second. It's been moved and second that the agenda stand approved. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we'll have invocation by Mr. Rosebuck.
Most holy and everlasting Father, we come to you with a bowed head and a humble heart. We ask that you take control over this meeting, give council the wisdom, strength, and fortitude to make informed decisions for the citizens of Fairfield County. We thank you in advance. Amen.
Amen. Okay, now we're down to number 4, selection process for county attorney. One of the things we learned in Monday's night meeting is that council can decide to hire the attorney. And I'm hoping that we do that. We do that, okay? So can we get a motion for council to hire the attorney?
So move, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that council hire the attorney.
Okay, it's been moved and second that the council hire the attorney. Are you ready to vote?
Question.
Discussion.
Discussion, go ahead.
Are we gonna have a list of attorneys to choose from? We're gonna bring some in and interview them and have a list of attorneys to choose from?
My thinking is we're gonna appoint a committee to look at that. I can even tell you who I'm thinking about should be on that committee right now if you want me to.
Yeah.
I won't go into that.
That'd be good.
I will lead that committee along with Mr. Trapp, and I've asked Mr. Taylor, would he work with us on it? Any other discussion?
I had the same question.
Okay.
Mr. Bell, how many are we looking at? We're gonna have 4, 5, 3, 2 candidates? What's your thoughts?
We don't know at this point, but I think we're thinking about at least 3 or 4, right, Mr. Taylor?
I would think that would be good, at least 3 or 4 at a minimum.
Okay.
Question. Are we going to, is the committee going to select the attorneys, or are you going to allow the attorneys to do,
my thinking is that we're gonna go ahead and the 3 of us we'll look at the names, interview the candidates, and then we'll come back to council with a recommendation.
but what I'm saying, are you going to allow the attorneys to put their names in the pot, or are you going to reach out to 3, 4 different attorneys?
Right now we're thinking about reaching out to those persons we know with the help of some of the attorneys that we know today.
Is that?
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know what, because we never had to hire an attorney, so I don't know what the payroll is for an attorney, but I guess procurement would need to make sure we follow procurement, and it would have to come before council on a, depending on how much the money is. It have to come before all of council to make a decision and vote on it, correct?
I think attorneys are exempt with council's vote from procurement.
Okay.
There's certain professional services, attorneys being one of them, that are specifically listed that are exempt.
Okay.
But we do budget. We have a line item for legal fees, and that can include by far more than just the county's attorney. But yes, that would be voted on in the budget. And we would have to, in interviewing the attorneys, look at whether they're going to be on a retainer or whether they're going to be on an hourly basis. So we would have to have a proposal from the attorney.
Right. All right. Well, I think, me personally, I think it needs to be an administration decision, but that's my opinion.
Was our past attorney on hourly, or was he?
He was hourly, yes. And then the previous one prior to that was actually an employee. He was on our payroll and received insurance from us. So there's a whole host of ways you can do it.
Right.
Okay, again, any other discussion? Any other questions? Okay, again, for that committee team, to hire the attorney, that'd be Moses Bell, Micah Trapp, and as advisory and to help us get that done is Mr. Jason Taylor. Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Opposers?
No,
Nay.
Okay, so how many nay was that?
3 days.
3, okay. So that's 4-3? Okay, thank you. All right, now appointment of ad hoc committees. Tonight, we got a new administration bill and review of existing contract. I want to appoint a committee, ad hoc committee to review the Mount Zion contract. And, is to determine the cost to the county from the beginning to the end based on the contract. And just look at the contract, review the contract, and see what is costing the county from the beginning to the end of the contract. Now, that's all we want this committee to look at. Now, there may be another committee later on, but that's all we're asking them to do, okay? And for that committee, we're gonna ask our vice chair to lead that, along with Mr. Tim Roseborough, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Cornelius Robinson also to work with you all on that committee. Okay,
In the room for a question, Mr. Bell?
yes, sir.
I understand you want to create an ad hoc committee, but is this primarily for council members to get an understanding of, or is just to make it public?
One of the things we do want to make it public, but it also, it will help us understand because we continue to get this question. How much is it costing us? And if you remember, one of the questions I asked the auditor was, he had in there $4,200,000 for the cost of the contract. Okay, some information I get is 8.9 million. And then there's some that says it's 11 million. So one of the things we want to be able to do, and then there are some other questions out there saying, didn't we spend over $100,000 in the beginning to do this or do that? I don't know. Okay, so it's not designed to let me tell you, the purpose of this team, this committee, is just to see how much it has cost us from the time of inception until now. Okay, and then to review the contract itself. Okay, so then from this team, they'll bring back to the full council what that contract looked like, what's in it, and what we need to do going forward. Now, we will appoint a committee, just to make sure everybody understands this, and I'm putting it out there now. That is, we're gonna need to look at the cost to enter the building, because we don't know what that's gonna look like. I've talked to Mr. Taylor and to see what that looks like. For right now, we don't know. But as my understanding, we don't have anything, and help me, Mr. Taylor, we don't know any cost,
Is this
that what it's gonna take us to enter that building.
is this something that staff can look at, Mr. Bell, or you just?
Sir?
Is this something that staff can look at? Couldn't look at?
I'm hoping they're looking at it.
Um,
Yes, sir.
my question would be, has it cost the county anything as up to this point?
Well, it depends on what we include in all that. We did a fair amount of cost associated with just the exploration of the different options.
Right.
When we were looking either at Mount Zion or building something freestanding or doing this building. So if we're going to include all that, there was some upfront cost with
Right.
that.
But lease payments or anything, that's not,
We
Okay.
haven't began with.
Shouldn't we be looking forward instead of looking backwards? We should be working on our wastewater treatment plant, the mega plant and stuff like that, and get that stuff, concentrating on that stuff in order to make Fairfield go forward, not backwards. It just don't make any sense. We need to be going forward. We're gonna spend our time on trying to figure out what a contract is. You can set a couple people to do that, but we as a council and administrator and staff, we should be moving Fairfield County forward.
Ms. Green?
Yes, I think that to move Fairfield County forward, we are responsible for making sure that our monies are spent judiciously. And we can't do that unless we have all of the information in front of us. So I think that that's more important than saying, if we're going to move Fairfield County forward, we have to make sure that we have all of the financial information we need. We're going to be working on budget soon, and we want to make sure that it's correct and that we forecast it correctly.
So that,
Hold a minute,
so that's going to,
Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Trapp had his hand up first, please, sir.
Didn't we also spend $175,000 at the start of that lease contract at the beginning?
Let me look into that. I don't remember that number. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm not.
Yeah, 175,000.
That's one of those things, again, we can verify as part of this process.
Excuse me, Mr. Taylor.
Okay.
It was 175. It was included as part of the contract. That provision was in there for $175,000 to be.
Okay, Mr. Gilbert?
I'm just, just baffled that from what I gather from Ms. Green, this one issue right here is going to keep us from moving, from concentrating on something else until, if I'm wrong, her statement was, until we find out how we spending our money, we can't move forward.
I think we need to make sure, Mr. Gilbert, that we are talking about the same thing. We were talking about the contract here before us. I simply said that we need to have that information.
Okay, and again, go ahead, Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Bell, Chairman Bell, I just, before this new council came in, I'm gonna just go ahead and put it out there. It was already said that the first thing was on the agenda was to tear down old projects, and it kind of seemed like we following suit with that. Just keep in mind, if the ultimate goal is, if the ultimate goal of this ad hoc committee is to terminate this project, we looking at probably a $13 million lawsuit
At a minimum.
can't afford. We looking at our bond rating going down, and we looking at no other plan to house employees in. I just want to put that out there. Now, I have no problem with the ad hoc committee, but if it's the whole purpose of it is to tear down a project that we have no other solution for, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to find anything in that contract that was put in there. I just want to put that out there.
Yes, sir, and thank you, Mr. Robinson, for your comments. One of the things we noted earlier is as we talk about the money, as you look at it, the auditor had 4.2 million. We saw that. The understanding I have is about 8.9 million. Okay, Mr. Trapp just asked a question about how much money we spent on in inception. Was that 175,000? Then there's some other questions. So one of the things we want to do is help make sure we settle all the questions. Now, as we look at this is going to be really helpful to us as we do go forward. Let me tell you something. This will help us not only identify, but see what we've spent, have a look at the contract. Because you're right, there are many, says Mr. Robinson, that the contract itself is not valid. Because people are saying you didn't get the one bid. You and I and Mr. Taylor, we went through all that. You remember that, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so then here's an opportunity for us.
But then we go back to
here's an opportunity for us to make sure we understand the contract itself, and also to look at how much money we have spent and how much money that the contract, for the length of the contract, going to cost this county.
I understand that, Chairman Bell. I just would like to say, if we're going to spend your 2 years digging up old stuff to make sure it's correct, we'll never get anything done.
Okay, now, my thinking is with Mount Zion, didn't you say we going in this year? This year?
We should, yes.
So this thing gonna be settled this year. It ain't gonna be 2 years.
I would hope so, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna tell you what's amazing to me except for Mrs. Green and Mr. Roseborough, who has recently been elected, all five of us was here when the Mountain Zion contract was done. And now we get to this point and you don't have a clue of what was spent, what was discussed. And if anybody should know, the five of us that's already on council should have already asked these questions before we even got to this point. If you want to know, the best thing to do is listen to the town hall recording, and you can get all your answers from there.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly.
And also, you're talking about finding out what the cost. It's probably a lot less than the $13 million that we minimum that we will probably have to pay if we,
Thank you,
cancel this
Mr. Gibb.
contract.
Thank you, Mr. Gibb. Okay, that settled. Ad hoc committee is named. Okay, and one of the things we need to be able to report back in 60 days to this council. Again, that committee is Vice Chair Green, Mr. Roseborough, and Mr. Robertson. Okay.
Just one other question. No citizens, just the three of us?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so since we, there's, no time for, county council time. And so, I would like to, use the privilege of, since we've already talked about a lot of things here.
Michelle, what about the census data?
Okay, the review of the census data, one of the things we found out is the data is not completed enough at this point to review and to get all the information we need from it. So at this time, I will not appoint that ad hoc committee. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Any, okay, and, one of the things, today, and we see a lot of things that's going on. I met with someone and one of the things they told me is, and I guess that's for the council members is for us to be careful. Okay, and one of the things they talked about is that, we really need to be careful because, they believe this thing about, Mr. Taylor is growing to a fever. Okay? So they're asking us to be careful. And one of the things, so that's what I'm asking everyone to do. They even laid out and told me what they thought the plan was. And really, I had planned to talk about that tonight, but I've changed my mind. The reason I've changed my mind is because I know what's going on, and most people in this in council chambers know what's going on. But I will talk to a few people about this because one of the things that the person told me today is that the things that you see is just a strategy. So I plan not to go ahead and do it. Go ahead, Mr. Pauly.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you was gonna have the opportunity to
No,
speak.
I've changed my mind. And then, Mr. Pauly, the chair do have some privileges, but I won't entertain that tonight. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved in second. Are you ready to vote?
Ready?
All in favor?
Aye.